America's coastline is often spoken about as if it were one single story. Crowded boardwalks, summer traffic inching toward the shore, and beaches so busy you can hear 5 different radios at once. And yes, those places exist. They're lively, familiar, and woven into decades of postcards and family albums. But they're not the whole story. Because if you trace the edges of the map a little more slowly, you begin to notice something else. Pockets of coastline where time moves differently. Small towns where the beaches are still clean because the community cares for them, not because a tourism board demands it. Places where the horizon feels wide, the mornings are quiet, and the ocean still sounds like the ocean. For many people, that quieter version of coastal life feels impossibly far away, especially now when major beach cities have priced out all but the most flexible budgets. When renting near the water can mean giving up space, or light, or even the simple comfort of hearing waves without traffic competing for attention. And yet, the dream hasn't vanished. It has simply shifted into towns that don't make the glossy lists, but offer something far more human and attainable. In today's video, we're exploring 10 of those places. Coastal towns where everyday life still includes uncluttered beaches, fresh breezes, and housing costs that sit within reach for real people. If peaceful waterfront living has ever called to you, stay with us. This journey might surprise you. And if quiet, honest real estate storytelling is your kind of space, subscribing helps more than you know. And the final town, the one waiting at the end, may be the truest expression of calm coastal living left in America. So stay until the end. You'll want to see it. At number 10, we arrive in Port Orford, where the Pacific feels wild, the beaches stay remarkably clean, and every morning begins with the sound of wind over the cliffs. This is one of those places where the coastline doesn't just frame the town, it defines its rhythm. Life here moves at a slower, more intentional pace, shaped by the ocean's moods and the creative spirit of the people who call it home. Port Orford sits along Oregon's remote southern coast, a stretch known for its dramatic rock formations, endlessly photogenic viewpoints, and a level of beach cleanliness that feels almost unreal in today's world. The town itself is small, artistic, and proudly simple. You'll find galleries tucked into weathered buildings, friendly locals who know the tides by heart, and a lifestyle that prioritizes nature over noise. Housing remains refreshingly attainable for a West Coast shoreline. Median home prices often hover around $325,000, Zillow, 2026 Itudur, with many homes offering glimpses of the Pacific. Rentals generally fall in the $950 to $300 range for a modest 1 to 2 bedroom. The overall cost of living tends to sit slightly below the national average, depending on housing choices. People who end up here are usually seeking something specific: retirees looking for peace, remote workers needing inspiration, and artists who thrive in the quiet space between waves. The upsides are remarkable: unspoiled beaches, low crowd levels even in summer, and a community that cares deeply about its coastline. The trade-offs are honest ones. Nightlife is minimal, and the weather leans cool and windy no matter the season. Picture a quiet Tuesday morning where the fog lifts slowly off the cliffs, and the only footprints on the beach are your own. At number 9, we reach Rockport, a Gulf Coast town where calm bays, clean beaches, and warm breezes create a surprisingly peaceful coastal rhythm. There's a softness to life here, shaped by long horizons, sunlit afternoons, and a shoreline that feels more like a gentle invitation than a destination you have to fight crowds to enjoy. Rockport is one of the few coastal towns in Texas known for its Blue Wave certified beaches, a recognition reserved for places that keep their shoreline clean, safe, and environmentally cared for. The water stays shallow and calm, making it especially welcoming for retirees, families, and anyone who simply wants to float without worrying about strong surf. Birdwatching is woven into local life, with pelicans, herons, and migrating species settling into the bays as easily as the people who move here. Affordability remains one of Rockport's strongest anchors. Median home prices typically hover around $295,000, Zillow, 2026 Etsy, and rentals for a simple 1 or 2 bedroom often fall in the $100,000 to $400 range. For many, that balance, Coastal access without coastal pricing is what turns curiosity into commitment. Life here is friendly, steady, and shaped by a community that still greets you at the grocery store. Of course, the Gulf comes with honest trade-offs. Hurricanes are a seasonal reality, and summer tourism can nudge traffic higher than locals might prefer. But for many residents, the benefits outweigh the rhythm of the seasons. Imagine an early evening when the bay glows gold and pelicans skim just above the surface of the water. At number 8, we travel to Lubeck, the easternmost town in America, where clean beaches meet lighthouse horizons and time seems to slow down. This is a place where the coastline feels untouched, where the air carries a crispness you can almost taste, and where mornings stretch quietly across the Atlantic before the rest of the country has even begun to stir. Lubeck sits at the far edge of Maine, a cool, quiet escape that feels deeply connected to the natural world. The shoreline is a blend of rocky outcrops, secluded coves, and pristine beaches that remain remarkably clean, thanks to both geography and a community that values its wild beauty. Summer here is gentle, never too hot, never too hurried, and tourism stays light, allowing residents to enjoy views that feel cinematic without the bustle of busier New England towns. Despite its postcard landscapes, Lubeck remains surprisingly attainable. Median home prices often hover around $210,000, Zillow, 2026 Trito, and local rentals for a 1 to 2 bedroom typically fall in the $900–$150 range. The overall cost of living tends to sit below the national average, making it appealing for retirees, artists, remote workers, and anyone searching for a quieter life at the edge of the continent. There are trade-offs, and they're important to acknowledge. Lubeck is remote. Reaching major services can mean a long, patient drive. Winters stretch out with cold winds and early sunsets. But for those who value solitude, scenery, and maritime history, the rewards are profound. Picture standing beside a lighthouse as the first sunrise in America touches the water. At number 7, we arrive in Beaufort, a coastal town where clear waters, maritime history, and clean beaches create a storytelling backdrop. There's a gentle elegance here, the kind that doesn't try to impress you so much as welcome you in. Beaufort carries the warmth of the southern coast, but without the rush or intensity you sometimes find in more commercial beach towns. This is one of North Carolina's true coastal gems, shaped by boat-friendly waterways, nearby barrier island beaches, and a historic district that still feels lovingly preserved. The streets are lined with old trees and quiet porches, and the water stays remarkably clear thanks to the unique ecosystems of the Crystal Coast. For many retirees and families, that combination, clean beaches, calm channels, and walkable charm, creates a lifestyle that feels both polished and peaceful. Housing follows the familiar rhythm of coastal desirability, but remains within reach for many. Median home prices often land around $425,000, Zillow, 2026 Chukur, reflecting both the town's appeal and its rising popularity. Rentals typically fall in the $2,300–$1,700 range, depending on proximity to the waterfront. Winters stay mild, and the sense of community is strong, the kind where people wave from their decks and know which boat belongs to which neighbor. Beaufort does experience summer tourism, and housing prices have been climbing as more people discover its beauty. But even with those trends, the core of the town remains steady: clear water, clean beaches, and a culture that values its maritime roots. Think of a calm morning, where boats barely ripple the water as they drift out toward the islands. At number 6, we stop in Port St. Joe, where sugar-soft sand and uncrowded beaches feel like a secret most travelers haven't discovered yet. This stretch of the Gulf is warm, gentle, and deeply calming, the kind of place where the water stays clear, the beaches stay clean, and the days unfold with a quiet steadiness that feels almost old-fashioned in the best possible way. Port St. Joe sits along Florida's forgotten coast, a region known for its unspoiled shoreline and low-key charm. There are no towering condos here, no loud boardwalks competing for attention, just postcard beaches, friendly locals, and a lifestyle shaped by sunlight and simple routines. Clean beaches are part of everyday life, not a seasonal promise. Retirees, remote workers, and families come here for warm weather without the pressure or pace of Florida's major metros. Housing remains more accessible than many Gulf destinations. Median home prices tend to hover around $365,000, Zillow, 2026 est, with rentals for modest 1 to 2 bedroom homes or apartments typically in the $200–$1,600 range. It's still Florida, but with a slower pulse, a place where the cost of living feels manageable, and the shoreline feels like it belongs to the people who live beside it. There are realistic trade-offs. Hurricane exposure is part of life, and anyone considering a move here spends time learning about preparedness and insurance. Big city amenities require a drive, and the pace is intentionally quiet, which, for many, is exactly the point. Picture walking along soft white sand where the only sound is warm, Gulf water rolling in gentle waves. At number 5, we land in Pacific City, a place where clean beaches stretch beneath giant headlands and life feels shaped by the rhythm of waves. This is one of those rare coastal towns where the landscape does most of the talking. Sandstone cliffs rising like sculptures, long stretches of unspoiled sand, and a quietness that settles in once the tide begins its steady pull. Pacific City is famous for Cape Kiwanda, a dramatic headland carved by wind and ocean over centuries. The beach below stays remarkably clean, partly because of the community's care, and partly because this corner of the Oregon coast has always drawn people who love the outdoors as much as they love simplicity. The climate leans mild through much of the year, with soft summers and winters that bring moody, cinematic skies rather than harsh cold. For many retirees, remote workers, and nature lovers, that balance, beauty without bustle, is what draws them in. Housing reflects the town's growing appeal, but remains more attainable than many West Coast beach markets. Median home prices typically sit around $540,000, Zillow, 2026 at hour, while rentals for a modest 1 or 2 bedroom often fall in the $1,350–$1,800 range, depending on proximity to the shoreline. The community itself is small, warm, and anchored by an outdoor culture. Surfers at dawn, hikers tracing ridge trails, and locals enjoying quiet shoulder seasons when the town feels almost entirely their own. Trade-offs do exist. Tourist weekends can get busy, especially in summer, and housing availability can fluctuate with the seasons. But for those who value clean beaches, dramatic scenery, and a lifestyle tuned to the rhythm of the Pacific, the rewards are unmistakable. Imagine a morning mist rolling over the dunes as surfers paddle toward the headland. At number 4, we arrive in Carpinteria, a rare Southern California beach town where the sand stays clean and the vibe stays remarkably gentle. This is the kind of coastal place people often imagine, but rarely find anymore. Soft air, friendly streets, and a shoreline that feels lovingly cared for rather than overrun. Carpinteria sits just south of Santa Barbara, but its atmosphere is entirely its own. The beaches here are famously clean, some of the cleanest in California, with wide, golden stretches where the waves roll in softly, and the mornings begin with that unmistakable Mediterranean light. There's an old-school beach town charm to the sidewalks and storefronts, a relaxed rhythm that appeals to retirees, young families, and longtime ocean lovers who want Southern California without the non-stop rush. Housing is where Carpinteria reminds you that beauty has a premium. Median home prices often hover around $1.65 million, Zillow, 2026 est, reflecting both the coast's desirability and the town's limited space. Rentals typically fall in the $2,800–$3,800 range for a modest 1 to 2 bedroom, depending on proximity to the beach. Even so, many people choose Carpinteria for its walkability, safety, mild climate, and the simple peace of being able to step onto a clean beach without fighting through city noise. Tourism does rise in the summer, and housing affordability can be a challenge. But outside those peak moments, the town returns to its natural state, calm, sunlit, and quietly neighborly. Picture a sunset where palm trees cast long shadows over an empty stretch of golden sand. At number 3, we enter Ocean Springs, a coastal town where clean beaches meet a lively art scene and a quietly confident southern charm. There's a gentleness here the kind that shows up in oak-lined streets, sunlit porches, and the soft rhythm of the Gulf drifting in and out of daily life. Ocean Springs feels creative without trying, peaceful without slowing to a halt, and deeply rooted in a shoreline that residents genuinely take pride in. This is one of the most underrated coastal towns on the Gulf. The beaches are tidy and well cared for, offering calm waters and wide-open views that never feel overrun. But what sets Ocean Springs apart is the culture woven into its streets. Galleries tucked into historic buildings, cafes with local musicians playing on shaded patios, and festivals that bring the community together in ways that feel warm rather than crowded. Affordability is another quiet strength. Median home prices typically hover around $285,000, Zillow 2026 AEST, giving retirees, families, and creative workers a chance to live near the water without impossible price tags. Local rentals for modest 1- to 2-bedroom homes usually land around $1,050 to $1,400 depending on location and season. For many, that combination of culture, coastline, and cost makes Ocean Springs feel almost too good to overlook. The trade-offs are honest and familiar to the Gulf: humidity that settles in during the long summers, and the seasonal awareness that storm preparation is simply part of coastal life. Yet even with those realities, the town moves with an easy confidence, as if it knows its balance of beauty and affordability is something rare. Picture a breezy afternoon where live music drifts from a cafe as waves lap gently in the background. At number 2, we step into Port Angeles, a place where clean, cold beaches sit beside towering forests and the water feels almost glacier-fed. This is the Pacific Northwest at its most cinematic, where every horizon seems to hold two worlds at once: the sea stretching out in front of you, and the Olympic Mountains rising sharply behind. Port Angeles is a true gateway town, stitched between coastal calm and some of the most dramatic wilderness in America. The shoreline here stays pristine, shaped by tidal rhythms, driftwood silhouettes, and the cool clarity that comes with northern waters. It's peaceful, but never dull. On any given day, you might see ferries crossing toward Vancouver Island, eagles circling above the harbor, or hikers setting off toward the national park just minutes away. Housing reflects the town's growing appeal, yet still sits below major West Coast metros. Median home prices often land around $475,000, Zillow 2026 EST, with rentals generally falling in the $300,000 range for a 1- or 2-bedroom. For retirees, remote workers, and outdoor lovers, the draw is obvious: clean beaches, four-season recreation, and a slower pace rooted in community pride. Life here feels grounded, shaped by nature more than noise. Of course, the Pacific Northwest comes with honest trade-offs. Sunshine is limited, and cloudy winters are part of the rhythm. Costs run higher than inland rural towns, especially when it comes to groceries and utilities. But many residents find that the scenery, the kindness of the community, and the sheer access to forests and shoreline more than make up for it. Imagine waves brushing against driftwood as snow-capped peaks rise behind you. Sometimes the most meaningful coastal places aren't the ones with resorts or bright signage. They're the small towns tucked between headlands and harbors, where beaches stay clean because neighbors look after them, and because the world hasn't hurried in. These places remind us that coastal life doesn't have to be loud or costly to feel rich. Sometimes the deepest peace lives in the quietest corners of the shoreline, waiting for someone to notice. At number 1, we arrive in Cape Charles, a town that earns its place not through flash or fame, but through balance. A balance of clean beaches, historic charm, and an ease of living that feels almost old-fashioned. Nothing here shouts for attention. Instead, Cape Charles offers a quiet confidence, the kind that comes from knowing the shoreline is gentle, the streets are walkable, and the community still moves at a human pace. Set along the southern edge of Virginia's eastern shore, Cape Charles is shaped by the calm waters of the Chesapeake Bay. The town beach is wide, impeccably maintained, and known for its soft shallows, a gift for swimmers who prefer warmth and stillness over crashing surf. It's a place where children can wade safely, retirees can float without worry, and the horizon looks more like a watercolor than a postcard. Housing remains attainable compared to the larger East Coast markets many viewers may be leaving behind. Median home prices often settle around $475,000, Zillow 2026 est, while local 1 to 2 bedroom rentals typically fall in the $1,400 to $1,900 range. The overall cost of living sits comfortably below what you'd find in places like Virginia Beach, Wilmington, or the New Jersey Shore. Here, the water is close, but the financial pressure isn't. What truly defines Cape Charles is its scale: pastel homes, local shops, sidewalks made for wandering rather than rushing, porches where neighbors wave as if they've been expecting you, evenings when sunsets wash the entire bay in gold. It feels like the kind of coastal life people remember from childhood, not the one dominated by high-rise hotels or crowded boardwalks. And yet, the town never feels cut off. Norfolk is close enough for hospitals, airports, and big city conveniences, but far enough that the shoreline remains quiet and unhurried. In the end, Cape Charles represents more than affordability or scenery. It represents a way of living shaped by stillness, clean beaches, warm neighbors, and days that unfold gently. It feels like a promise kept, a reminder that peaceful coastal living hasn't disappeared. It simply moved to a quieter place on the map. We've just explored 10 coastal towns where clean beaches and peaceful living aren't fantasies. They're part of the daily rhythm. These places sit quietly along America's shoreline, offering something simple yet deeply valuable: space to breathe, space to think, and a coastline that feels genuinely cared for rather than curated for crowds. They remind us that even in a busy world, calm still exists. You just have to know where to look. Maybe you're imagining a future retirement by the water. Maybe you're hoping to find an affordable rental with a bit of sea breeze. Or maybe you simply needed the reassurance that there are still uncrowded corners of the coast, waiting patiently for the right person to discover them. Whatever brought you here today, I hope these towns offered more than escape. I hope they offered perspective, a reminder that the map is always wider than the headlines suggest. Which place spoke to you, and why? And if peaceful, real-world storytelling is your kind of journey, staying with the channel and subscribing truly helps more than you know. For real-world escapes, not fantasies.